I mean, one is a difference in skill.
I'm saying, so far as their enjoyment, their love.
Well, they might both be equally. One might be more dedicated, like Jimmy Page might be more dedicated, but he might not. Like maybe he's just amazingly talented, so they both spend the same number of hours.
Okay, let me stop you right there. This is an area. When you hear the practice regimens of the top guitarists, Eddie Van Halen, Jimi Hendrix, Steve Vai, all the modern guitarists, we're talking people who spend 10 to 12 hours a day.
Okay.
Very focused, not like just messing around with the guitar, but very structured practicing. It's like unbelievable.
Okay, so in that case, I would say that one is like a virtuoso, and he invests so much into it, he probably gets more out of it. And the other one.
What's the difference, though? But what are they? So you think they are? There's difference.
Yes.
See, it's interesting. I mean, as I'm listening to Gilad speak, I'm thinking more of the person who spends so much time that he or she becomes the perfectionist and hears painfully each and every note what's supposed to be slightly out of place and maybe has more difficulty enjoying it than the person who's a novice who just kind of thinks this is cool.
Good. I'm hearing some ambient noise in the background. Mendel, you got some background noise there? So put on mute until you're talking.
Hold on.
So, sure, you bring up a good point. The absolute great, whether it be piano or any of the arts, their love is of a certain, realizing a certain ideal of perfection, of harmony, of a certain kind of perfect orchestration, right? So therefore, their understanding of that ideal is so crystal clear. Any deviation or variation of that is, to their ear, is painful. Now, to the average professional guitarist, he'll hear a lot of stuff, but he does have a love of excellence, but his sense of that ideal is not the same. So the love, I'm going to argue, is if you have a change of the level of excellence of the ideal form of the music and the techniques that get you there, you're in a certain sense loving not the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Okay. It's so quantitatively different. It's of a different kind.
A different caliber.
Yes. It's like now you could say they both love music. It's true. It's not the same. Not the same. I mean, on a much more rudimentary level, it's where a guy says, yeah, I like that dress. But the guy's sense of fashion is so pathetic, has very little classification, doesn't understand, while if you speak to a designer who has studied the aesthetics of form and fashion to a high degree, their appreciation of excellence, they're appreciating literally, it's like a different thing already. Not just the dress, it's how the dress conforms to the ideal of beauty and precision and balance and all these different variables. And how to, and appreciating the enormous amount of work to make that happen in reality also is there. So it's a qualitatively bigger level of appreciation here. So that's a very important point. Also, by example, by Larry Bird, famous Boston Celtics player, back in the 90s and the 80s, versus enjoyment of a college basketball player who's not really ranked. They both love basketball, but Larry Bird's understanding of the game and the perfection and the strategy involved is qualitatively just superior. And that allows him to have the energy and the motivation to get up in the morning and go out to his court and literally shoot 5,000 foul shots. I'm not exaggerating. You can look at his regimen is unbelievable. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. The amount of work these guys have put in to become who they are is just unbelievable. It's like working 10 to 18 hours a day. What motivates them is not just they want to be the champion. Yes, they want to be the champion, but beyond that, there's a love of that idealized form of the game or of the art that we're talking about. Okay? So I'm saying that, so our basic point is that there's two dimensions of the love. There's a love of the idealized form, and there's love of the techniques that get you to actualize that. And second of all, is there qualitatively difference between the world-class champion and leader in the particular field versus the journeyman professional. They have a grasp of the game or the art of whether it be cuisine or football or basketball or guitar or music, and also go into the sciences. You know what I mean? There's the appreciation of a high school physics teacher concerning, let's say, Einstein's theory of relativity, and then Einstein himself's appreciation of that same theory. Is it the same? No. Because when he sees that whole thing, the entire universe in his mind is being organized in the realm of space, time, matter. Those things are qualitatively reshaped. The idealized notions that are being pointed to is qualitatively different. Okay, this is functioning as merely as an introduction to getting into our analysis of the mitzvah of loving Hashem and learning the Torah. Let's go to the sheet here. Who would like to read the first mitzvah? This comes from Rambam Sefer HaMitzvot. I don't know if I ever introduced you to that book. I'm going to tell it to you right now. It's a little story. So the Rambam, when he's in his 40s, he'd already written a commentary on the entire Mishnah. Then he embarked on writing the Mishnah Torah, which is taking the entire oral law, recasting it down to one volume of 14 books. Before he did that, he realized that he had to write a preliminary book called the Sefer HaMitzvot, the Book of the Mitzvot, which identifies the 248 positive mitzvot and the 365 negative commandments that equal the 613, because before his time, there was an existing paradigm of identifying mitzvot, crafted by an author called the Baal Halachot Gedolot. People call him the Bahag, and that was the dominant theory. And that had many more than 613 mitzvot. Okay? So the Rambam argued vociferously with the person's count, but he would say that people would look at his Mishnah Torah, look how he organized the mitzvot, shut it saying, well, he's wrong because he does not align himself with the authority of the previous generation called the Bahag. So therefore, he had to write a book which identifies 14 categories what makes a mitzvah, A. And then he's going to prove in a sort of a little paragraph form, less or more, of each one of the 613 mitzvot, give you a little taste of the mitzvah, show you its source in the Chumash, and the source in the Talmud that, in fact, justifies making the count of the 613.
So Rambam is the source of the 613 commandments idea?
No, there's the Talmud records in many places, although in midrashic material, that there are 613 mitzvot.
Uh-huh.
But you should know there are other authorities prior to him that did not view that as being sort of a possible counting, and that you could organize the mitzvot in a different classification and come to a different number, either less or more. Okay? In the mentality of Jews, the Rambam in a certain sense already won because you ask somebody, a basically literate Jew, how many mitzvahs are there? Boom, 613. But that's the Rambam's count based upon the Talmud, but other people came to different numbers.
I see.
Okay? So,
but did the Talmud itself say there 613 or not? Yes?
But here's the key point. But in midrashic statements.
I see.
Not in halachically binding statements.
I see. Got it.
So there is, shall we say, some wiggle room.
Got it.
Which means that 613 is a possible count, but not necessarily is the exclusive count. The Ram maintained that 613 was the count. And then he shows he has 14 principles which define a mitzvah to a mitzvah, A, and then he lists the 613, 248 positive, 365 negative. It shows you the identity of the mitzvah, like a little description, the source in the Torah, a little description of what the basic pieces is, and we're going to do 2 of that today. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
So I'm just explaining what the Sefer, so people tell you, what is a Ram Sefer on mitzvot? He wrote this as a preliminary book to the Mishnah Torah. So then when people would open the Mishnah Torah, they wouldn't blow him off saying like you're an idiot because you got the mitzvah count wrong. He started his controversial career by, body slamming the position that said the count was other than that because he has rather very forceful proofs and demonstrations. So this is the whole thing. But that's just by giving, that's just called some extra education here. Who would like to read the first segment of the mitzvah of loving God, which is the third mitzvah in the count? Who would like to read? Any volunteers?
I can read if you want.
Yeah, get a man.
Okay. Number 2?
Yeah. So Okay.
The third
mitzvah, you get.
Okay. The third mitzvah is that we are commanded to love God, exalted be He, i.e. to research and closely examine His mitzvot, His commandments, and His works in order to understand Him, and through this understanding to achieve a feeling of intense pleasure.
Go on.
Okay. This is the goal of the commandment to love God. We can see that the contemplation is the way to create this feeling of love from Sefer, from the statement.
The Sefer, just use it. The Sefer is a body of work compiled by the authors of the Mishnah, okay, with the primary oral law text on the verses in the book of Deuteronomy. Okay, it's a primary written source of the oral law.
I see.
Okay.
So from Sefer, from the statement, "You shall love God your Lord," can I know how to love God? The Torah therefore says, "And these words which I command you today shall be upon your heart," i.e., that through this research, His commandments.
Research about His commandments.
Sorry. You will discover the one who spoke and brought the world into being. From this, it is clear that the research will lead to understanding, and then a feeling of enjoyment and love will follow automatically, since the second verse explains the way to reach the goal of the previous verse.
Okay. All right. So this is big stuff here. Okay. So let's just see if we get it here. What is according to the Rambam, how does one experience the love of God?
To examine His mitzvahs.
Right, examine, but the research. I mean, it's in the class of kinds of learnings, right? Research and examining. Now notice mitzvos, His commandments, and His works. His works referred not limited to the Torah, but also His work of creation. You know what I'm saying? The universe is also His work. It's not limited to the Torah. So what will happen, according to the Ram, what does he say is going to happen?
Torah and also creation. Sorry, one more time.
What is the progression? And also, what is the Sefer? He's dealing with a problem. What is the problem with the mitzvah of loving God? There's a couple problems.
How can you be commanded to love someone? Or love
One.
something?
That's one problem. What else is the problem?
And what does love of God mean?
Okay, but be specific. What's difficult about the idea of loving God?
I guess we don't know what we're loving.
Right. So in all other loves, you have a love object. Here, there's no, by definition, there's no love object when God is not an object. So that's what the Sefer is saying. It says, and you should love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might, with all your resources. So how are you supposed to do it? So the next pasuk says, and these words or statements or ideas, concepts that I command you to be upon your heart. So the Sefer says that through the examination, contemplation, research about the Devarim, you are going to discover the one who spoke and brought the world into being. So the Rambam learns that as saying as follows, that the research leads to understanding. And then part of the natural experience of understanding is enjoyment, and the love will follow. Okay. How do we understand this? What is he talking about?
The more you get to know something, the more you can appreciate it.
It's true, but he's talking about the key. There's words of enjoyment, of intense enjoyment. So, let's go up to the examples that we the examples that we saw in the that we discussed earlier. In other words, when a person in any of these fields we talked about before, music, or football, or cuisine, you know what I mean? When a person experiences a breakthrough of understanding in a clear concept of what the idealized form in music or harmony would be, right? There's a deeper there's an enjoyment, there's a physiological enjoyment to that, of the aha moment, of the discovery moment, and it motivates person to energize them to greater spend time to further explore it. You know what I'm saying? There's to revel in that idea and try to get more and to find it more, to explore it more, to deepen it more. You know what I'm saying? Whether a person is learning physics, you know what I mean? There's a person makes a breakthrough, then becomes a desire to explore the scientific world in a deeper way. If a person makes the breakthrough in even basketball by a coach and getting a new understanding of strategy, there's an enjoyment of the moment of discovery, of the aha moment, and that in turn results in an attraction and a yearning to get a better, to be unified with that idealized good.
Rabbi, can you also say that the physicist, the athlete, the musician, not only are they, they're also examining in some respects God's works.
Yes.
So that maybe can they be their path of sort of loving Hashem, by closely examining an aspect of God's works, they are that can be their sort of research, which leads to their enjoyment and their love of God.
Well, the thing is that I think that the highest principle that they're going to achieve is they're not going back to the first cause. They're going to the idealized form of music or sport or cuisine. You know what I'm saying? It's not giving them it's a very limited, it's a narrow picture of reality. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, but maybe if you do it, maybe with some Torah study, that could become your intense research into this world. Like if I can see how if Einstein could be doing it
Now,
as a
Einstein's different. See, that's already different because that really is dealing with Hashem's world in a much more broader way.
Okay.
The world of cuisine or
Okay.
basketball is a very slender prism of the large thing called reality.
Right. But what I'm getting at is the guy who, like an explorer who climbs Mount Everest and just explores the world. That could be his way, rather than examining God's mitzvot. That could be his way of sort of seeing the wonders of nature and therefore researching God, basically.
See that? So, question: is that a research, or is that just a being awed by the aesthetic experience? In a certain sense, he's a kind of artist, but instead of himself putting brush to canvas, he's finding the rare locations in the natural world that has that unadulterated, gorgeous beauty. You know what I'm saying?
I think what I'm getting at is that it seems like Judaism is so intellectual, but maybe you can experience God in different ways, not just by studying his mitzvot, but maybe by experiencing the natural world.
Well, he does say remember, the Ram does say as one of the three things as being his mitzvos, his commandments, and his works.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So
that's where I think we're gonna. But I think that would be. I think the Ram would certainly, as he talks about a lot in his other work, the appreciation of the idealized principles of the universe that the scientist encounters. That is, in fact, if you read the description of what Einstein felt, the experience, the intense enjoyment of experiencing his vision of the natural order is literally the word for word the way the Rambam describes the experience of loving God in the Mishnah Torah. Let me just read it to you for a second. Hold on. Let me just get it. Let me just read it. All right. In other words, it's not in our secular world. Education and enjoyment often rarely coincide. Okay, when you talk about education, you might think about being bored in a college 101 class. It's not really an experience of discovery. It's not really an experience, and it doesn't lead to, as Ram's talking about, intense enjoyment. We're talking about an education of it results in intense enjoyment. So it's a certain. Now, I think all of us have had that class, that conversation, that article, that reading, whatever it was, that had that profound psychological experience of enjoyment of the new insight, the new class clarification. You know what I'm saying? So that's something which is something which she's talking about. So it's not talking about it. Intellectual sounds like boring. And the bottom line, if you're talking about a learning that doesn't result in intense enjoyment and love, because if you're getting intense enjoyment, you want to seek the source of that enjoyment. That's natural. You know what I'm saying? So if it's not happening, that means it's not. Then that's not the kind of learning or research that the Rambam is pointing to. So let me. Oh, this is beautiful. This is Einstein wrote, he says, this is a quote, he says, to know what is impenetrable for us really exists and manifests itself as the highest wisdom and the most radiant beauty, whose gross forms alone are intelligible to our poor faculties, this knowledge, this feeling is the core of the true religious sentiment. In this sense, I rank myself among profoundly religious men. Okay? 1 second.
Good.
And he says, based upon this, Einstein wanted to create a cosmic religion based upon what we would call that Love of Hashem. He's talking about Love of Hashem. Notice the words he's using. He's talking about feelings and beauty. Okay? We don't have this idea that ideas, it's only unfortunately, hold on 1 second.
Check it.
So that's the key point. That's, of course, obviously very few people are Einstein, but we're talking about his appreciation of the beauty of the universe, and the structure there is result in a deep feeling. Okay? Love of Hashem is love. So it's talking about love and intense enjoyment. Okay? So it's not talking about learning in the dry, scholastic, boring, learning for grades, memorizing, which obviously characterize the majority of our academic life.
I think maybe what's common. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, I just want to. We're talking about a different class of learning.
Right. Of course.
Learning of discovery, which provides enjoyment, and a seeking of the source of it. It could be a learning of an art.
Right. I want to. Right. Exactly. I think it happens. It can happen. Sort of the feeling of awe, maybe the reaching for God can happen in many fields. It can happen to a scientist. It can happen to like a world-class, racer who races yachts, or to Charles Darwin, or to a musician that basically he sees like the world through like a tiny. You know how they say to see the world in a grain of sand, in eternity, in an instant. Anything you study like very, very, very passionately and very hard, you can use that as your tool to sort of access the divine. So,
can you hear me with this new? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So the we're going to explore that, but but it's just how study of what subject matter to realize what idealized form and appreciate and get intense enjoyment from that and seek the source of that idea, what is in that category and not, the Rambam does not put how he views that, and from other sources, it would be studying his Torah and studying the natural world.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So because music will be too, now theoretically it could be instrumental, but as far as it's going to be, it could be love of an idea, but which could point to that.
Okay.
But it could be very far away. It could be on a remote leaf on a branch to the trunk, which is versus things which are directly close to the trunk.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, so we will expand upon this now. So let's take a look on the. If I just skip the second mitzvah, but if you look, when we read the Shema, it says you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. Good. These concepts which I have commanded today, you must remain on your hearts on the bottom there. Teach them to your children, or teach them sharply to your children. Speak them when you're at home, when you travel on the road, when you lie down, and when you go up. So very simply, that part of Moshe's presentation of the mentality of the lover of God's wisdom is teaching and discussing these ideas. It goes hand in hand. Yet, strangely enough, we have the second mitzvah, another mitzvah of teaching Torah, learning and teaching Torah. Let's take a look at the 11th mitzvah here. Gilad, you want to read? Mendel, you want to read? Who wants to read?
Mendel.
Yeah, you're on, Mendel.
I can read.
I'm not sure if there's going to be any ambient noise. So.
Okay, we don't hear any ambient noise. We're good.
What am I reading?
The 11th mitzvah.
The 11th mitzvah is that we are commanded to study to teach the wisdom of Torah. It's called Talmud Torah. The source of this commandment is God's statement, teach them to your children. So Sefer says the phrase teach them to your children refers to your students. One similarly finds all over that students are called children, as it's written, and the children, i.e. the students of the prophets, went out.
We discussed that little piece last week. Go on.
Our sages also said that the word teach them signifies that they should be sharp in your mouth. That when someone asks you something, you should not stammer, but rather answer him immediately. What does that mean?
In other words, that the level of learning is that you actually attain the rank of master, which is that anybody asks you any question of Torah, without hesitation, you don't have to say, I'm going to look it up. You're at the level that you have such a mastery that you can give an answer, a coherent, clear, accurate answer on demand.
You attain a level of expertise.
Yes.
Okay, so this commandment is repeated numerous times. Learn them, do them, so that you will learn them. So this commandment is stressed and encouraged in various passages spread throughout the Talmud.
Okay, good. So I have one basic question. The Torah seems to present that learning and teaching Torah is part of the lover of Torah, the lover of God. You know what I mean? Part of his program, naturally. So why is the Rambam and the rabbis putting the mitzvah of learning Torah as being a separate mitzvah? It should really be a component part of the mitzvah of loving Hashem, because that's the vehicle. You know what I'm saying? In other words, going back to what Shira was pointing out, you can't love anybody. You can't demand it. But what do you got to do? You got to be putting yourself in the circumstances where that will occur. You know what I'm saying? So you got to be involved in this learning to the extent that you'll get the intense enjoyment, to the extent that you will have the automatic experience of love. You know what I'm saying? So why is not, the question I want to address is, why is not the mitzvah of loving Hashem, why is the mitzvah why is the mitzvah of learning Torah not a component part of the mitzvah of loving Hashem? Make it one mitzvah. It seems that the rabbis are coming and taking something which is one and dividing it to two. Because really, if learning Torah is dead,
he's lying on too.
You know what I'm saying? Why is there a separate mitzvah? It should be really one. The mitzvah of learning Torah is a vehicle of loving Hashem.
Well, it could be. Why? Because we didn't create the mitzvot, Hashem did, right?
Okay.
But it could be that learning the Torah is a good thing in and of itself, not just as a means of loving Hashem, but it's a means in and of itself. It's an end in and of itself.
So it's interesting. All right, so that's a good question. That's a good approach. You're saying that really that the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, of learning Torah, is an instrument, a tool of loving Hashem, but it also has its own separate objectives in addition, and therefore it should be identified separately, even though it's in the same paragraph of loving Hashem in the Shema. It should be counted as a separate mitzvah. The oral law is entitled, if you will, to see that and to make it as a separate, distinct unit and not part of the whole of loving Hashem. Okay, so I agree with you, and that is correct. I'm going to break it down, but what is that element there? What is that element? And to bring it into the world that we're talking about of loving Hashem, and we mentioned before. here's the key point, is that we started off the class. I brought you examples of the composer and the musician, the coach and the football player, the professional guitarist versus Jimmy Page. We see that even within the realm of any given love and discipline that we see, any field, there are qualitative different levels. Both people can love, but in a certain sense, they're loving different things. Both people have techniques of excellence, but they're qualitatively in a different class. So in a certain sense, the answer that I'm sharing with you is the same answer we discussed a number of weeks ago with the idea of how the mitzvah of Kriyat Shema, repeating 3 paragraphs of Shema, comes out from the paragraph as well of describing the activity of the Ohev, the lover of Hashem, which we identified contemporarily as being the fan or super fan of Hashem's wisdom. Because we identify that really that people grow in discernible and discrete stages. Okay? And everybody starts off as being a learning out of yira, out of a sense of fear, alternate motivation. In other words, I don't want to be viewed as an ignoramus, so I'll learn Torah. All my friends are learning Torah, I'm going to learn Torah. I want to be able to be appreciated in the community, so I'll learn Torah. There could be a whole host of motivations that are spurring the person on, other than the draw toward appreciate God's wisdom and be drawn toward the source of that enjoyment, what we call love of God. Okay, the love of the source. So and as such, not only is there different motivations, the curriculum for that said person, his techniques of that said person, are completely different. So literally, it's a qualitatively different experience. In other words, part of learning for the regular person, the partial fan or the apprentice to the lover, is to gain a methodology of thought, to be able to live a good, wholesome, disciplined life, to live in a society which is just and fair and organized, that the love of God could be an experience of the whole society, even though that he or she will only have moments of this love. You know what I'm saying? So the mitzvah of Talmud Torah is a separate, distinct mitzvah to learn and to teach the Torah, to get that foundation, and to grow as an individual, to be able to get to be on the level of becoming the lover of wisdom.
So, Rabbi, are you saying that people that really, really become experts at studying Torah and teaching Torah, they experience God maybe love God differently?
Yes. In the same way that Einstein's the best example. Einstein's appreciation of the source of the universe and my appreciation of the source of the universe is qualitatively different, and I will say that mine is inferior.
Okay, that could be. I could see what you're saying. On the other hand, Einstein can tell you real things like E equals mc squared that can be tested and verified and predicted, but can a real expert in Torah who devotes his life, a famous rabbi, does he really have any idea more about God than the average person does?
Yes.
And they have a bit more insight into God? Because I'm asking because God is so unknowable, and if they really do know more, I mean, I'm not doubting it. I'm just asking if they really do know more. Einstein came up with real things that he wrote. What did they write, or what did they teach us that's so new? Okay,
so again, their curricular interests are not the same. In other words, because ultimately there's the study of the Einstein study of the laws of the known universe. But ultimately, we're talking about a being who's beyond the universe. So there's a study which is even beyond Einstein's study, which is based upon prophetic information about a world which is beyond the material world. A. B is that knowledge of God on a major level is removing is an experience of negative knowledge and identifying within oneself the various magical thinking the person has about his world and how he should conduct himself, and there's whole realms where it's not been under the eye of what's called rationality. Torah, as you may have noticed, has a few laws associated with it, and that basically every aspect of life has to be really investigated. So that a person is not just has these lofty ideas, but that every aspect of their life is really is an object of study and research and of wisdom. So it's producing a appreciation of a justice and a righteousness that is going throughout the personal life and the communal life and beyond. So I mean, that's the short answer to that whole question. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, I think you did. You definitely, I definitely understand what you're saying, but is it? I mean, I could see how a very spiritual person is in a different plane, maybe, but do they really grasp God any more than we do, or than I do, or do they have any special insights that maybe I don't? Like, can they answer difficult questions better than an average person can?
The answer is yes, because first of all, by dint of the fact that they think about these things in a. I mean, look. If you look at, let's take the Rambam being a good example. The areas of where he investigated. I mean, it's remarkable. Every aspect of life he investigated, and insight and understanding the psychology of man in every area is just unbelievable. So most people live as Socrates pointed out, is that living an unexamined life is not worth living. The Torah is a methodology of forcing ourselves to get the ancient wisdom to be able to have these insights and to go through a rigorous experience of self-reflection. What is valuable? What is not valuable? What is real? What is fantasy? And to really go through a process of ongoing improvement.
But can somebody who's a Hindu also equally as learned, can they also access the same truth as a very expert rabbi?
Obviously, we have a general statement that there is wisdom among the Gentiles. But the core principle of Judaism is really the notion of that there was a revelation, that there was information given via the revelation, which gives man an opportunity of an advantage, not necessarily an advantage.
Right.
So therefore, there is divine information that the person would either gain at the end of a very lengthy and exhausting research program. The best example is the idea that there's a creation. Until 1930, the scientific community maintained that the steady state theory, that basically the universe was eternal, and therefore the idea of a creator was ridiculous, and by definition that the idea of a miracle is impossible. And then lo and behold, may have mentioned before, we had Edwin Hubble sitting on a mountain in northern California with his telescope, and noticing that we have the redshift, that all the galaxies around us are moving away rapidly, and that we are actually even though that the universe looks so placid, is in the middle of a violent explosion, and that the universe is really seeming to be exploding from a center location, which became the founding concept of the Big Bang, which is pointing to that the fact is that there was at least that the universe was compacted to a singularity, which exploded, which came into being. What happened prior to that is not knowable by empirical knowledge because there's no laws of nature to induct from. So the bottom line is that we have the idea, we have the book of Bereshit that told people that there's a creator in the universe. I mean, that's something which is not for hundreds of years you would not know that. You know what I'm saying? So that's some important information.
But I agree with you. But Einstein, for example, to come up with the energy equals mass times c squared, like Einstein did not find that in the Torah, and he didn't study Torah that much. He had to get it elsewhere.
Correct. The Torah is not a source of scientific knowledge. For whatever reason, God did not make us part of his revelation is to give us all the laws of physics, chemistry, and biology. That he left for mankind to figure out ourselves.
So my more general question is, anything that a rabbi can glean from intense lifetime study of the Torah, can't somebody else learn it in a better way by studying a specific topic? For example, like, I guess a very smart rabbi will have some insight into a marriage if it's maybe marital problems. But wouldn't a psychologist studying marriage be able to even have better insight? Or is there anything that a rabbi can know better than anybody else in the world?
Well, I don't think I'll generalize more than just a rabbi. I would say the rabbis of the tradition. You know, let's don't deal with any garden variety rabbi, but
right.
The rabbis, the big ones, the great ones, had profound insight into metaphysics, into the world beyond the physical world, and also to live life successfully in a truly harmonious way. It's something that, with all the science that the Western world has and all the technology, the more anxious, the more neurotic we seem to be. So it's as far as the essential goal of life, which is to be happy, that's all a person ever wants, is just to be happy. But man is a complex being. Happiness is not simple.
But how do you explain that certain, very, very devout people, Freud says they themselves seem neurotic. I mean, like a lot of the, ritual can be looked at as a neurosis, and people who are extremely orthodox, they themselves suffer from problems sometimes too.
Okay, I agree with you 100% that, and this you know yourself, Judaism itself does not mean that you once you're an observant Jew, it's sugar and spice and everything nice. That automatically, you have the answers for everything, and you're just filled with ecstasy and joy and happiness. Now, you have access, maybe, to a program where you can have a higher quality of existence. You know what I'm saying? Yes. The same, again, we're also, by the way, we are Jews living dominated by the Western world. So I think people will be a little bit frightened to know how much Jewish and how much American we really are. You know what I mean? Just because a person puts a kippah on his head does not make him, really intrinsically radiating the Jewish ideal. You know what I'm saying? And we've talked about on many occasions about people just, growing up even observant, just doing everything in a rote manner, just sort of dialing it in. It becomes sort of a socialization. And yes, the ritual become a neuroses, 100%. All that we're saying is true, but it's as far as the design of the program, it's an opportunity for excellence. I will just say, even a person who's not so educated Jew, just following the Torah basically, he will live a much higher quality life. And I'll tell you why. Because in America, you know, the ideal of hedonism, the goal of life is to be famous, the goal of life is to be rich. The people that have actually achieved those goals, you read the People magazine, the Us magazine, the TMZ, for 5 minutes, their whole life are just disasters. You know, it's like the most craziest thing. America idolizes people who achieve these goods, these supposed goods, live a horrible existence. While a person who's living a moderate existence as an Orthodox Jew, all right, doesn't have the biggest ideas, but the bottom line is he has a stable family. They get together. They're at least 1/7 of their life is not ruled by technology. They have family time. There's an idea of engaging your child and trying to nurture them properly, to give clear values. You have an ego ideal of being a fair person, a kind person, a just person. You know what I'm saying? I'm not talking about the Rambam level Jew. I'm talking about a regular, what they call a Pinta Yid, a regular walking down the street Jew. He's not even conscious about these ideas, but being that the Jewish culture per se of mitzvah is just superior to what the Western world has to offer insofar as culture. And just, if you ever don't believe that, open up a People magazine and just read about our heroes and heroines. And what one's going into rehab, one's having their 4th divorce, one kid committed suicide, this person's on prescription medication. I mean, it's a disaster. And these are people that we herald as being our great people. So I just think that's you know, we're talking about the cutting edge of Judaism, loving God, Talmud Torah, the high end, lofty ideals. But even if a person is not at that level, the nature of these system mitzvahs is to have a very balanced existence. You know, I think that's something to keep in mind. So I just wanted we're on the OT here, I just wanted to share just succinctly is that the reason that the Chachamim identify loving God and Talmud Torah as being 2 separate mitzvot, even though that the Rambam identifies that loving God is coming through the exploring Hashem's Torah and His world, and that produces the intense enjoyment, that's really the realm of the advanced, the true fan, the advanced person. There's a separate stage of the developing person who is getting moments of flashes of enjoyment, flashes of love, but it's not a regularity. It's not governing his existence. So there's a separate mitzvah which is regulated for that person. The person who's in love does not need to be reminded it's a duty to do the activities of what they love. You don't have to remind the football fan they have to love football. It's natural. Or tell Yitzhak Perlman, oh, you know, you have to practice your violin today. What do you mean to practice your violin today? I love violin, my whole existence. Or tell Jimmy Page, oh, by the way, today's Tuesday. Don't forget to play guitar. It'd be ridiculous. Play guitar. You can't separate that guy from the guitar. He goes to the bathroom playing guitar. I mean, it's unbelievable. So there's two separate mitzvahs talking about 2 different people, 2 different techniques, 2 different mentalities, and loves of different kinds. So it's really talking about the preliminary stage. We have the mitzvah Talmud Torah. So there's a minimum. Learn a little by day, learn a little by night. The minimum every day. But the guy who loves Torah and he's having the intense enjoyment and love, he can't stop. He's an addict. He's an obsession. An obsession to wisdom. You know, like tell Einstein. Oh, by the way, Einstein, today you got to study some physics. I mean, if you read the guy's life, the guy was like he would like just zone out and just be involved in his world of physics. He would not know what date is.
So, Penny, we were learning at one point about the importance of balance and everything. Do we think of this as being the exception, like learning, acquisition of knowledge with regard to Torah and love of Hashem?
Excellent question. So the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, the Ram actually will get, and actually the Mishnah Torah gets, he has a certain amount of time he spends at his job. certain amount of time I'm involved in his personal needs, personal time, and a certain amount of time doing learning. It's part of a balanced existence. What we call affectionately being, a guy has to be a learner, earner. Okay, that's phase one. But the person, the rare person who's completely moved by the profound insight that he's gaining and gleaning, you know, what he needs to exist on becomes less, and his focus becomes this. So we have the rare people. It's like Einstein, you know, he bought the same clothes. So he didn't have to, so he could spend less time thinking about what he has to wear. He had to organize seven clothings. He wore the exact same thing. So he wouldn't even waste the mental time about what am I going to wear today. You just see, today's Tuesday, I pull out Tuesday. Wednesday, I pull out Wednesday. Okay, who is that? That's rare one. We're talking about the absolute highest level person. You know what I'm saying? So that's a different level. But part of loving Hashem is also loving your wife and your kids. It's a component part of that. I didn't get to go into that as well. It's part of because that's part of the whole system. So it's a different thing. But I just want to explain that there's different levels. It's a progression, and that the halacha is always focused on creating the structure of discipline and methodology and growth for the average Jew. And when a person graduates out of that, these restrictions fall away. You don't have to, you know, he's going to be doing it on his own. He doesn't need to be nudged. Hey, did you learn today? No. It's the same way you don't have to ask, hey, Jimmy Page, did you play guitar today?
So are you sure? So you said last time that theoretically somebody who so loves God is exempt from saying the Shema twice a day. Is that accurate?
More than that. And he doesn't daven. He's exempt from davening. No, he daven like once, like for example, I think it was Shimon ben Yochai, who was in the cave for 12 years with the son during the Roman persecutions, and he was basically learning with his son, you know, in the cave. I don't know if you've heard that story, and eating carob and water, and you know, having their neck up into sand. Now, is it exactly a literal thing? But it's trying to tell you that they're able to be involved in learning, and not just learning, but metaphysics kind of learning, to the degree that they're not like, you know, they're not interested in anything else. They're completely content.
So just to make sure I understood you, there's some, maybe theoretically, some Jews that are so advanced and so love God that they don't have to put on tefillin or say the Shema.
They're always wearing the tefillin. They don't take it off except they have them on the whole day. They wear the towels the whole day. We haven't had such a Jew in about 1,500 years.
But are there some Jews maybe in the past that were so amazing that they were exempt from saying Shema twice a day?
They just have to say the first line.
I see. So and are there some Jews who were so amazing that were exempt from eating kosher food, or they all had? No,
you never exempt from the negative commandments. But the positive commandments, which are instrumental to loving Hashem, if you're in that state, it was ridiculous to be involved in that. You know what I'm saying? It's like going backwards. But we haven't had such a Jew in at least 1,500 years, unfortunately.
Did Maimonides exempt himself from anything?
He doesn't say anything. He doesn't say that. But you know, he was pretty damn impressive. But we're talking about people that we haven't really seen in many lifetimes. You know, the Jewish people. There's a term called Niskadnu Hador, the generation have been decreased because we've been living in the diaspora, which has two things. Either we've been spending our time fleeing from swords and knives, you know, one problem, and two is that we've been absorbing the culture of the various alien cultures, which has definitely diluted our mentality. I mean, a good example is, does it everybody feel right now like, if you don't watch the ball drop tonight at 11:59, isn't there a party that feels like you're a little bit of a loser?
Loser. Right?
So, but most people would want to watch that ball. It's like a cultural thing. You feel like you have to do it.
I'm happy to go to sleep.
Right. Okay. But all right, some people like to go to sleep. But just seeing that but many Jews, the Orthodox Jews, they go to parties tonight. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just a culture. It's a culture. It's such an embedded cultural thing. And I'm not using that saying that's good, bad, or indifferent. I'm just saying that I'm just giving you as a sense of how we are really, governed by these mentalities and sensibilities. You walk into a store and you can sing along to every single Christmas song. Who doesn't know Silent Night? I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas. You can sing all the top 10 Christmas songs. We know them all. We're in a Christian nation. Do not think it's limited to that. Do not think it's limited to that.
Or even the idea that democracy is the best form of government according to Judaism. That's not true, right?
It is not the best. It's not the highest form of Judaism. It's not the highest form. But
okay.
Within the imperfect ones, it's darn good.
Right, of course.
You know what? Let's don't make the good the enemy of the perfect. So that's all right. So that's the basic thing. We'll continue on a new subject matter next week. Any questions? Okay, so somebody's all right.
Thank you. Go for it. I can't.
Actually, I have one quick question, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
This is a different concept, different question, different topic, if I may.
Yeah.
That I try to find where, when Hashem said to kill all all the 7 nations in Canaan, does it say anywhere in the Torah that this will be the one-time action and that we can never do it again?
Well, there was only one invasion of Canaan.
Okay.
And they didn't do it.
Right, they didn't do it. Okay.
They didn't do it, which was really a weakness because they couldn't do their job. That's a whole juicy topic, but I mean, I'll just end it with this: that there's a time for peace, there's a time for war. There's a time for everything. So not any one thing is an idealized state. So I'll let the short answer to a very delicate question. That's a whole area. All right, guys, enjoy. I'll see you guys next year. I had to throw that joke in.
Thank you so much.
All right, all the best.
Thank you.